Oh, wow. I can't honestly believe I'm standing here tonight or that I have to be standing here tonight. And the fact that I am before you once again on the same issue that we spent 8, 9 months discussing last year should be disappointing to you. I know it's more than disappointing to me. So, despite robust council conversation and discussion and consensus, from what I could gather at the goal setting workshop, and despite 73% of the residents telling you that the animal control ordinance is working very well as a great compromise, and in fact, 13% of those folks wanted more access, 13% less access, but an overwhelming 73%. We are taking it upon ourselves to reach out to the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and sharing incomplete data sets with them. And here we are again. It just feels like a complete and utter disregard for the citizens that you're elected to serve. And I don't know how you expect to establish trust after something like the fiasco of last year and then now this. Many in the dogs group last summer wanted to enact what I call a nuclear option, which is to recall counselors. I worked very hard behind the scenes to make sure that that did not happen because I love this town. The last thing I want to see us do in a world that we're living in right now is tear this town apart. And that's what this issue is going to do. And that's what us reaching out, tattling on the town, saying we're violating the beach management agreement. It's just utter chaos and creates a problem that we shouldn't have. This is the summary. I believe that was shared at the council workshop. It was also shared with the Maine Department in Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. If you just look at this, before I send this off to a federal agency, anyone here, can anyone add 71 plus 34? It equals 105. But at the bottom, it says 172. If we're going to reach out to a federal agency, please make sure that we're at least sending them a data set that's actually complete and makes sense. I don't want to tear this town apart, but I also don't know if I'm going to be able to hold people back at this point. They're pretty upset.
Tell you that I agree with Brad Zinsky, that I'm also appalled with this data. But I'm appalled for a whole different reason. This is not scientific, Hans. I hate to say it. And it's not scientific for a number of different reasons. And the claims of non-compliance with beach management agreement are unsupported. It leaps from observation to violation to ordinance failure. And you guys could make a motion today to say that, we decided we weren't going to revisit this issue in 2026, and we're not going to. And that's uncommon for you to do that without something on the table. But it's also not common for a town councilor to send unsolicited data to a federal agency that could call for fines on this town and could cause a lawsuit on this town. So that's pretty unprecedented as well. Because your dog is your family. I know you've heard this a million times, but I'm just telling you this because if you want to bring up this issue, you need to understand that this is a family issue. And it's not just about birds. It's not just about, going on the beach. It's about people who love their animals like their family. And so that's why it can be a very divisive issue. Advice would be to tread carefully and be honest, and the data needs to be presented in a way more scientific way.
James, 17 Chamberlain Road. I was also here this summer and I spoke about the importance of community from the beach, particularly as a new mom, and what it means to have this community that I've met through the beach. And since then, I've had another child, very similar experience where people I've met on the beach walking my dog have been dropping off food, giving gifts. It's really very special. I think it's unique. And it's something that I wouldn't have had I not had a dog and a place to walk him every morning. And it is frustrating when I thought this was done. I thought we had covered it. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but it seems overwhelmingly that the town is in support of having dogs have access to the beach. And if it means there needs to be more stricter enforcement, then I think that's what we should look into instead of taking it away altogether.
I will start because I know we had some comments and I know we got flooded with some emails about the animal control ordinance. And so I really wanted to address that immediately so I can kind of put that information out there. So in December, I was nominated as the chair of the ordinance committee, which I'm very grateful for that position and that role. And prior to our goal setting session, I had an email from a counselor and other information sent to me saying, can we make amendments to the animal control ordinance in regards to the plovers? Because, I think the recommendation from the state was something a little bit different than what we're actively practicing. I take my job seriously as the ordinance chair, and I did not want to just completely ignore a request that was coming from a counselor, from other groups, and anytime a resident comes with me with a concern, I'm not going to just ignore them. I also kind of want to at least give them the time to hear what they have to say. So prior to our goal setting session, I did reach out to the state. So I want to be clear, no one reached out to the federal government. No one has talked to the federal government. I was told we had a contact at the state, spoke to them and just said, I don't know what I'm looking at. I thought my understanding is they're in communication with the plover group, and this was not new information that was being provided to them. Also, I've only been the chair of ordinance this is my second year. There was no are we doing something wrong? It was like, it was just more of a question, as that is our expert. That is the person we have an agreement with. I think the staff recommendations and the expert recommendations are kind of what that agreement was. Then we had our goal setting session after that. And so I think, while I appreciate that no one wants to address that, I also think we have a group of residents who, I think they came out, and we did get emails last year about concerns about it, and I didn't want to just completely ignore it. Did not expect the state to do anything more. Reached out for please educate me. What are we doing? Can we do something better? I think we just need to enforce our ordinances a little bit better down at the beaches. But so I just really want to put it out there that there was no, I wasn't trying to tattle on any one group. Never said this data is solid data. I didn't know really what I was looking at. And I think it's also, we have a group of 50+ plover volunteers who are doing the best that they can. They take that job very seriously. They gather the data. I spoke to a plover volunteer today who quit because she said they were making her cry. So I think I didn't want to ignore the fact that there is an ongoing issue. I honestly do not know what the state's intention are. I have no idea. But I also felt like when you're giving a lot of data and you're getting feedback from people in our town, our population has exploded since then. I didn't think it was wrong to touch base and see where we were at with that situation. Ultimately, nothing can change from our animal control ordinance without the support of the council. And I don't want this council to get dragged down with something that happened before we got together as a council and said, we don't want to address this. So I just really wanted to make it clear. This wasn't a council action. This was the chair of the ordinance committee going, I don't know what I'm looking at. Can I get some feedback? Because I completely hear the feedback for the residents, but there are also residents who are spending a lot of time gathering the data and things like that. Like Corey said, I don't think there's really much we can do until something comes down from the state. I don't think again, in the one conversation I had with the guy from the state, I don't anticipate anything earth-shattering coming from them. And I don't think it would be something like, oh, you're in trouble now, or things like that. So, just doing my job as a due diligence, if any resident comes to me with some concerns or an ordinance proposal, if it's a goal or not, I do feel like I want to give residents and also my fellow counselors the respect to at least do a little research behind what they're asking to put on the ordinance committee agenda. With that being said, I think our council's made it pretty clear how we feel about this. And so, I don't want to create another issue for us the coming year, but I also don't want to ignore the fact that we do have residents who are reaching out and expressing concern with the current situation. I'm happy to talk to anyone. I will tell you, no one has reached out to me to date. to ask me what that conversation was. So it's just been a lot of speculation about what's happened. So I think I just, I'm happy to talk to anyone if they have concerns about what happened. I think I'm worried that one tiny phone call and one question has kind of spiraled into more than this. But obviously it's on everyone's radar, and all we can do is wait and see what the state does. Thanks.